Aggies down 2 with the ball. Got to get it in. Martinez, it's a 3, and he's fouled, and he has it!
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. This is episode 54, and we're back talking college hoops once again this week. If you missed our episode earlier this week, we talked, had my friend Caleb Wolfinger on the show. We talked Arizona hoops, them staying at the number 1 spot in the AP poll, getting a record 5th ranked win in their first 9 non-conference games. So if you missed that episode, make sure to go check it out wherever you prefer to listen. But with a little bit of not a lull in the NBA schedule, but just some stuff this week I want to see play out before we get back to talking NBA. And plus, this is the last real college hoops weekend of 2025 before we have the holiday break here, and it's an exciting one. Mountain West play kicks off this weekend with an extended conference schedule this year, as I mentioned earlier in the week, with Grand Canyon joining the conference. They're up to 20 games in the conference. Each team is going to play 20 conference games this year, so they got to get started right away, and that gets started this weekend. A bunch of interesting games, but there's only really one headliner, and it's between the top 2 teams, at least in my view, from the non-conference portions of the schedule. The top 2 teams in the conference, Utah State versus Colorado State in Logan on Saturday afternoon, should be a really, really good one. Those 2 teams have played some exciting games the last couple of years, although last year it was kind of blowouts on both ends of the spectrum, with each team winning pretty big at home. And to do so, we've got another repeat guest on the show today to help us preview this game, and it's Patrick Mayhorn from the Aggship. Patrick, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy to talk about this game. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a really good one. And I remember having you on the show. You were one of the first guests we actually had on the podcast back in February, talking about a really, really good Utah State team in Jerrod Calhoun's first year. Now, year 2 for Jerrod Calhoun, got the Aggies were able to get him to stick around, break that kind of streak of one and done coaches with the program. And it's paid off. Obviously, they've had a great start to the season. They are the top team in the Mountain West in terms of KenPom ratings at 41. They're 9-1. Not exactly the most daunting non-conference schedule, which we talked about a little bit in the season preview episode we did on the Aggies, but they've taken care of business for the most part, got a couple of true road wins, and now are starting non-conference play against Colorado State. Just from your perspective, what has been the most impressive part about Utah State's 9-1 start here?
I think it's been the ability of players like MJ Collins to fit right into what they want to do. It's been a little bit stop and start for Utah State offensively this season. It's not been quite as crisp as Jerrod Calhoun is accustomed to, and that has caused some frustration. But I mean, MJ Collins is averaging 20 points a game, and it has become something that they depend on, that he's going to do that, and that's really. And that's new for him. He spent 3 years at the power conference level. He was at Virginia Tech for 2 years. He was at Vanderbilt for 1 year, and he was a bench guy. He was an energy guy. He would come in, he would play defense. Maybe he would hit some threes, maybe he wouldn't. And Utah State saw more in him and was correct. There was a lot more in him. He has been the leading scorer for the team. There's a little bit more that he could probably do defensively as an on-ball defender specifically, but he really has not had any trouble fitting into this team. I think that's been the most impressive thing, really, has been the way that they have integrated him, and the way that now Mason Falslev has really come back along. He started off a little bit slow, but it seems like he just does that. He's done that every year. But those two, I think, are 2 of the best, if not the best, wing pairing in the conference. Probably one of the best wing pairings in the country, honestly. They're both averaging 17 plus points a game, and they've worked really well together. I think that's been the most impressive thing uniformly. A lot of the other stuff for this team has been sort of inconsistent, but MJ Collins really hasn't been. He's been excellent all year.
Yeah, I was going to start with him too. I mean, he's just been awesome. Like you said, he had that 40-point game against Davidson. He's had a lot of high-scoring games. Obviously, you have to when you're averaging 20 points per game. And he's just kind of seamlessly filled into that role that Ian Martinez had for this team the last couple of years. As kind of the leading scorer. Mason Falslev, like you said, is still kind of the do-everything guy for this group and does kind of all the dirty work and is a lot of times initiating on offense. But Collins as a scorer has just been so impressive to watch. And that's going to be something I'm I'm really interested to watch this week in this week's game because, like you said, this Collins Falstaff duo is one of the best in the country and easily one of the best in the Mountain West as well. And going up against the Colorado State duo in Josh Pasquarelli and Brandon Recksteiner that are shooting the lights out from three, as the Colorado State is as a whole, as the top 3-point shooting team in the country. But I wanted to ask you about this big man rotation because, like you said, there's been a lot of inconsistencies with this team so far this year, despite the 9-1 start, and it feels like Jerrod Calhoun is still trying to figure out what his starting pair is in the front court or starting trio in the front court, all that, however you want to describe it, and trying to figure out the rotation because this team is pretty deep. It can go 9-10 deep on a consistent night, but the minutes are kind of been up and down for guys at times this year. You've seen, some freshmen getting into the lineup recently with Adlan Elamine and all these guys, and it just felt like maybe there was a set duo to start the year, and that's just kind of been all over the place to start the year. Like, how have you made sense of how Calhoun has tried to work out this big rotation and what is best for this group?
What's best for this group is still, if anybody has the answers, feel free to send those along, because nobody seems to be quite sure. The consistency has not been there. There have been, I think, just about everybody who has been in that rotation has had at least a couple good showings. Zach Keller, the transfer from Utah, the biggest of the bunch, is 6'10", 245, just had, I would say, probably his first good performance of the year. He had been very quiet early on, but played pretty well against Illinois State. Got started. He got his first start of the season in that game and opened it up with like 7 points in the first 2 or 3 minutes. Played really well to open the game. But all of the guys there have shown potential. We know what they can do. It's just a matter of getting them to do it consistently. Carson Templin is kind of a known commodity. I think that he is better this year than he has been in years past, but there are games where he just isn't really there, or he's just not really involved. His shooting is part of his game, maybe not a part of his game that Utah State would like for him to use as much as he does at times, but he's gotten better defensively. He's a good rebounder. He's an energy guy. Gary Clark started off the season red hot. He had 3 or 4 double-doubles in his first 5 games and then went very quiet for a couple of weeks. Bounced back very well against Illinois State, 18-8. Played very well in that game. They need him to be good. They need him to be not necessarily at 18-8 level, but he has to lead the team in rebounding. He has to be that guy on the boards, and he just wasn't for a couple weeks there. And then you have that 4 spot. That 4 spot has caused them problems really going back to Calhoun's arrival. Tucker Anderson is just not hitting threes, and that was really sort of the entire idea when they brought him in. He's shooting like 29% from 3 at Utah State. He was up near 40% when they got him from Central Arkansas 2 years ago, and he's just not a good enough defender to justify that. And so they've been trying to figure out what to do with that spot. Adlan Elamine, the freshman you mentioned, is about as raw as it gets, but he's 6'9", 6'10", with a 7'1" wingspan. He's very fast. He was a complimentary player, not necessarily a role player, but certainly not the top option in the high school ranks. He played at a very, very good prep school out in the DC area. And so he knows how to do that. He knows how to be a more of a 3-and-D guy. His defense, I think, is already better than Anderson's. It's just he's a freshman and he does freshman things sometimes. And so that spot, I think, is almost causing them more trouble than the center spot. We know that the center spot has talent. It's just figuring out how these guys all work together, because it's not been a game-to-game consistency yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Gary Clark because you mentioned how red hot he was to start. Obviously, I think he's come off the bench for the majority of the games. So I was wondering if he's a guy that they're considering moving into the starting lineup, and just kind of how valuable of a piece he has been and will be going forward in this game in particular, because Colorado State has had injuries in the front court. We're missing both LaShawn Bemba and Kyle Jorgensen in their last game, although Jorgensen is probably more of a precautionary thing because they were playing an NIA school. But it feels like there's going to be opportunities for Utah State to score inside in this game, because that is something that Colorado State has struggled with defensively. Obviously, everybody knows how good their offense is. I think still top 20 in the country in offensive efficiency. Yeah, 17th right now, but they're 181 in defense. So there's going to be opportunities for them to score, for Utah State to score inside. And I was wondering if you felt like this could be not a breakout game for Gary Clark because he's obviously already had that before start the season, but kind of a reminder game of why they brought him in because a guy that put up big numbers at lower levels during his career.
Yeah, they need it to be. They need it to be a reminder game. He played very well against Illinois State. He was a double-double machine at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. That was why they brought him in. It's a physical league, the Southland that he was playing in. He knows technically how to rebound. I've been consistently impressed with his positioning, with his footwork. He's good. He's a good rebounder. But he's had some foul trouble. They gave him a start a week or two ago against Charlotte, and he picked up, I think it was just the 2 fouls before they pulled him out, but he had 2 fouls within 50 seconds basically. And it's like, okay, well, we gave you a try. we tried you in the starting lineup and you got 2 fouls immediately. Neither one, I don't think, were even shooting fouls, just silly stuff. And so he has to not do that. He has to stay out of foul trouble. He has been able to do that sometimes and not at all able to do it in other times. He's had games where he's just been completely not involved because he picks up so many fouls so quickly and he's just done. They need him to establish himself. They need to find ways to get him the ball. Entry passes have been a little bit of an adventure for this team at times. He can do it. He can score. He can get to the basket. He can hit free throws if he gets to the line, but he does seem to be one of those guys who needs to get going early if he's going to get going at all. If he doesn't find his way into the game in the first 5 or 10 minutes, he's probably not going to be that much of a factor. And if he's not, then they would need Zach Keller. They would need Carson Templin, probably Templin more than Keller, to step up and fill that spot. But somebody's got to score those points. You can't ask Mason Falslev and MJ Collins and Drake Allen to do all of your interior scoring. Those bigs have to do some of it.
I was curious too with the bench scoring because Utah State has obviously got a decent amount of bench production so far this year with Colby King doing his job and obviously Gary Clark as well. But Elijah Perryman was a guy I was really intrigued by coming into the season just as a highly recruited guy out of the San Francisco area. Seems like he's kind of been up and down in terms of the minutes and his role in the rotation. But do you feel like this could be a game where bench scoring for Utah State plays a factor as well with Colby King and Perryman in the backcourt in particular?
Those two are really interesting. Those two have been very hard to get a read on. King has had some very good moments. Perryman, the highs are so high with him and the lows are just awful. It is like it
very
is
typical freshman stuff.
Yes,
right there.
it is. He is as much a freshman point guard as you will find. He will make some plays that nobody else on the team can make, and then he will make some plays that nobody else on the team would ever think about even trying to do, because it's like, that's a crazy thing to do. Why would you do that? Who told you to do that? And he's been having more of those than he's been having the really good moments recently, and so they need him to bounce back. And they need Colby King to just be more consistent. His off-ball defense is not good. His on-ball defense is excellent. He's one of their best on-ball defenders, but he doesn't really know where he's supposed to be in the matchup zone, which is difficult on the perimeter. He leaves shooters open too often, and his scoring has been hit or miss. He's not really an on-ball creator for this team, and so they need him to score. They need him to hit shots, and he hasn't done that super consistently. He's been one of the guys specifically that Calhoun has talked frequently. I mean, pretty much every time that they've not played well this season, he has talked after games about practice habits, about guys not being as locked in as they need to be. The term he's used frequently is that they've lacked for humility and they've lacked for leadership. And they need Colby King to have those things. They need Colby King to be more consistent than he has been. And when he's good, when he's on, when Perryman can contribute, when Jordy Barnes can come in and contribute, this backcourt's very, very difficult to stop. It has a lot of different skill sets, but those guys have not been consistent. And honestly, Drake Allen hasn't been that consistent.
I wanted to ask about the defense in particular, because I remember last year when we had you on just talking about the defense for Utah State. Obviously, that was a struggle for that group. Obviously, I think they finished the year top 20 in offense in Ken Pom, and obviously Jerrod Calhoun is a very, very gifted offensive schematic kind of guy for basketball. But the defense was just really never there for that Utah State team, and it kind of came back to bite them in both the conference tournament and then in the NCAA tournament as well. But this year, they're top 50 in both offense and defense, and they're going to need to be at their best this week against a Colorado State offense, which I mentioned earlier is top 20, and is a really reliant on 3-point shooting. They've got guys that can score on the interior, like I mentioned, with Kyle Jorgensen, Kerry Booth as well as a guy you can lob it up to, and he'll go up and get it. If Rashawn Bema is able to go, he's a gifted post scorer, but I'm still eager to see. He really hasn't played that much all this season, so I'm eager to see if he'll be able to go. But what has kind of led to this so far this year? Maybe it's quality of opponent, whatever. But Ken Pom kind of takes that into account, and this Utah State defense appears, at least on paper, to be much better this year. What has kind of led to that in your eyes?
They're longer, they're faster, they're more athletic, they move better laterally. That was the main thing, was just raw talent, raw athleticism, raw ability. They got bigger, not necessarily on the interior, but everywhere else. They've got, I mean, their starting guards are all 6'4" or taller.
Yeah.
Everybody in the starting lineup is 6'4" or taller. Mason Foslev somehow grew an inch in the last year, but I don't know. I guess that happens sometimes.
I grew an inch my freshman year of college, so I guess it kind of happens.
There you go. I think Mason's a little older than your traditional college junior, but anything can happen. Maybe they got him on the medieval rack and they stretched him out a little bit more. But that's been the main thing, is that they're longer, they can disrupt passing lanes better, and they can prevent interior shots. They do not give up a lot of interior shots. And so their lack of rim protection hasn't really been a problem. The shots that they do have to defend at the rim, usually they have more guys there to do it. The bigs are able to move a little bit better. Gary Clark is a very good athlete. Carson Templin's a good athlete. Zach Keller has moved well when he has been aware of what he should be doing on the defensive end. That's been a little bit inconsistent at times, but he's new to the system. And they take away the shots that they want to take away. They force more threes. That's the idea behind this defense, is that you protect the rim without needing to have $1 million center. You don't have to have that guy who can actually block shots consistently. You can do it by committee. You can force steals on entry passes. You can force steals on just about anything. And they're top 5, top 10 in steal rate. And I think that that's been the main thing, is just that they have better personnel to suit this matchup zone in the way that it's supposed to work. They still have flaws. They still give up, I think, too many open threes. They get beat on backdoor cuts a lot more than they would probably like to. They get beat around the corner sometimes. That one is especially frustrating for the coaching staff. If a winger or if a forward gets beat on the baseline in that zone, he will almost always get sent right to the bench. It's like the next possession, he's going to the bench. But they've been better at it. Their rotations have been better. There have been times where they have lost that a little bit, but when the defense has time to set up, when it's not just transition, fast breaks back and forth, they have been, statistically very, very good. It's just a matter of getting back in time, getting that zone set up. But once they do, they're very hard to beat.
I wanted to get your take on this game as a whole, because obviously on paper, or maybe not on paper, but just in my view, these have been the two most impressive teams in non-conference play so far in the Mountain West. And it might be it's probably going to be a down year in the Mountain West, if we're being honest. I think it would be generous if this is going to be a 3-bid league this year, and this is a league that 2 years ago was a 6-bid league. I just don't think it's going to be that this year. But I do think both of these teams could be at-large teams if they don't end up winning the Mountain West as well. Just how important do you think, I mean, obviously it's 1 of 20, but how important do you think this game is in kind of setting the tone early for what the Mountain West is going to look like at the top?
I mean, for Utah State specifically, you have to win this game. It's a home game against a good team, right? Those are the games you have to win if you want to contend in the conference. You can't drop home games. That's the advantage that Utah State has. That's the advantage that basically everybody in this league has, is their home court environment. And you can't lose those games and expect to find yourself in it at the end of February and at the beginning of March. It's really, really hard to make up for it when you drop a home game, even if it's a home game against another top team in the conference. And for Colorado State, you pull an upset here, I don't know who's favored, but you go into the Spectrum and you win. That's a massive advantage. That is a boost that, frankly, most teams in the league are not going to have this year. Most teams will not come into the Spectrum and beat Utah State. Historically, that just doesn't happen. It's a very, very difficult place to win games. And so I think it probably matters more for Utah State because it has to defend its home court. Obviously, for Colorado State, you win this game, that's great. You're in fantastic position. You have essentially stolen a game that you were not expected to win. But Utah State has to win the game. If for Utah State's side of things, it would be very, very, very difficult to bounce back from opening conference play with a loss to a top, another top contender like this. And as for outlook, it's so hard to project with these two teams right now because Utah State's, do they have the humility? Do they have the leadership? Are they lacking in it? And Colorado State is shooting the cover off the basketball. It's a fascinating matchup with two teams where I don't fully know what to trust with either one of them right now.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a fascinating, not contrast of styles, because both teams like to get up and down, both teams like to be led from their offense. But Colorado State obviously has really struggled on the defensive end throughout the start of the season, and we'll see. That's certainly going to have to improve for them as Mountain West play gets underway here. Just before I get you out of here today, Patrick, just has anything kind of stuck out to you about the Mountain West so far? Whether it's been San Diego State's kind of up and down start to the season, Boise State losing to a Division II team and then seemingly bouncing back pretty strongly on the back of their defense. Obviously, Grand Canyon coming into the league this year. That's a program that's made the NCAA tournament a bunch in recent years. Just kind of what has been your early takeaway from what the Mountain West is shaping up to be here, at least in the first couple weeks?
Yeah, I've been impressed by the way that the league has responded in the last month or so. The first couple weeks of the season were obviously bad. They were very bad. It was not good for the conference, but that was, I think, going to happen pretty much regardless. It was the league enjoyed a lot of continuity, not necessarily with rosters, but with coaches over the last couple of years. And there are still coaches who have stuck around. Brian Dutcher's never going anywhere. Apparently, he's just going to be at San Diego State forever. Same with Leon Rice at Boise State. But you lose Richard Pitino, you lose
Nico Medved.
Nico Medved at Colorado State. Those are tough guys to replace, and you lose a bunch of star power in the process at both of those programs. You lose guys at Boise State, at Utah State, at all of these schools are replacing players, and it's difficult to deal with. And I think that having 2, 3, 4 weeks of trying to figure that out and then coming through it on the other side and getting, the league has picked up big wins recently. It's, Boise State's carried a lot of the load, but Colorado State had a great stretch there at the end of November into the beginning of December. San Diego State, I don't really know what exactly San Diego State is doing, but they didn't lose to Air Force, and that's good.
They were trying to in the first half.
They were certainly trying to. Miles Byrd, Player of the Year, folks. He's really living up to it. And New Mexico, I really like Eric Olin as well, and I think that they're starting to figure things out. And I mean, hell, Wyoming is like 60th in the net rankings, and Sundance Wicks is, I think, a very, very good ball coach.
That's a fascinating game between them and Grand Canyon this Saturday. That's easily the second best game in the conference on Saturday up in Laramie. I was actually on Brendan Williams' Go Lopes radio podcast earlier this week discussing that matchup. That's a fascinating one too, because I don't know what to make of Wyoming after a not miserable because they played well, but the schedule they set up was designed to have them go 9-2. I just don't know how real any of it is.
Yeah, I can appreciate the no bad losses, right? That's the goal if we're talking about those second, third tier teams in the
conference. Bad losses, no good wins, really.
Yeah. Just don't do anything that will hurt everybody else in the process. just be normal. And Wyoming has been normal, so I can appreciate them for that. UNLV not so much, unfortunately. Nevada is another one that I think has been mostly normal. They had a couple losses that they probably shouldn't have, but I think the league's getting better. I think it was going to get better. It's not going to be a six bid league or anything like that, but this is how it goes in the conference. You get these new guys in. It takes a little while for everybody to figure out what exactly they're supposed to do. And then it comes to February and you have a whole bunch of bubble teams that are all at that point in the season really good and really hard to beat. And it would be great if they all started off the season really well, but I don't know how realistic that is.
We're not getting another one of the 2023-2024 season like we had. Yeah. We're just not getting that again.
It's it is what it is. It's part of the deal of being at this level in college basketball, but these programs are resilient. They've got great fan bases and they tend to figure these things out, and they seem like they're doing that.
All right, Patrick, that's all I got for you, man. I really appreciate you hopping on the show today. I know you're a busy guy with bowl game coming up for Utah State as well, and then obviously starting Mountain West play and hoops. So appreciate you hopping on today, and enjoy the holiday season.
Thank you. You too. Happy to be on.
All right, that'll do it for today's episode of Basketball in the Mountains. Thanks again to Patrick Mayhorn from the Aggship for joining today's episode. Make sure to go subscribe to his website, theaggship.com. Follow him over on Twitter at Patrick_Mayhorn or at the Aggship for all of the best coverage of Utah State athletics. Certainly doing it more in depth than we do here, but glad to have a nice conversation about the Aggies and their 9-1 start today, heading into the start of Mountain West play this weekend. So appreciate him for coming on once again, and appreciate all of you for listening. Make sure to subscribe wherever you do so, whether it's Apple or Spotify, or if you prefer to watch on YouTube, subscribe to the channel there. Leave us a like on the video or a comment. All that kind of stuff helps us grow the show as we are in our first full season here on the podcast. And covering all these Mountain West games in these great environments like we'll have this Saturday at the Spectrum in Logan is one of the biggest reasons I want to do this podcast. So appreciate everybody who has been listening from the beginning and has come and joined on this season. Had plenty of those. So appreciate all of you, and enjoy the weekend of basketball.